Marvel casting news for Black Panther, Vision series, and more. Ahsoka recast Baylan Skoll, and why The Flash failed, according to the director. All that and more coming up right after this. Welcome to Multiverse News, your source for information about all your favorite fictional universes. My name's Matthew Carroll, and with me on the panel today we have Haley Hobbs. What's happening, Haley?
We've got the big three in the main story, so I'm excited. We're going to talk about all of our favorite things.
Yeah. You mean like aliens, wizards, and robots?
Yep, that's what I mean.
Nice.
Awesome.
Nice.
Honestly, it's pretty close.
They talk a lot in Hollywood about the four quadrants. You know, we hit the four quadrants. It's kind of like Marvel, Star Wars, DC for us, like the three quadrants.
Yeah.
Hitting all three,
sure.
You got something for everybody.
I know. Again, I know you're from the holler, but you have to have four quadrants. You can't do three quadrants. It doesn't make a whole.
No, just go with it. You're thinking about it too much.
No, it'll
don't poke holes in this.
J. Scotty St. Clair's in the house. What's going on, J. Scotty?
I am here too. I would have said also, but got to play on the numerology here, so I am here too.
Nice. I like it. And all three quadrants of Jay Sisson are here. What's going on, bud?
Doing well. Thawing out over here.
Oh, yeah.
Finally made it out of the house and feeling good. It's like 8 degrees
and
outside, but
igloo.
Whatever. We roll.
Yeah. Your video didn't work last week, so we had to... I texted Jay Scotty and asked him to do a mock-up of you in an ice house or like an igloo, and he did. And I was expecting... Well, I was expecting, and he did nail it. He more than nailed it. I was expecting a quick mock-up that wouldn't look that good, like kind of like Jay in a little igloo, like cartoon or something. But he like did like a photorealistic, like I didn't know if people would know it was a joke. Like
I could get away with that as my profile picture. People wouldn't ask questions.
They wouldn't.
If you take an extra 2 seconds to look at the proportions and the lighting, I think it's pretty obvious, but thank you. I'm glad everybody had fun with it.
On a quick glance, I don't think it was noticeable. I was like, oh, well, that just looks like Jay. Digging himself out of an igloo. I really dug it. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that, Jay. Scotty, on the last second there. Well, we got a 5-star review to talk about. Last week, we had someone write in and initiate the Winter Soldier to come attack us. And so this week, we have another 5-star review continuing that storyline. Lemmy Rio says, pay no heed to Bucky Barnes, for I am Skrull Gaia, and I am the most powerful being in the multiverse. Yes, definitely stronger than commandeered Bucky Barnes. Let me tell you how to beat him. First, you appeal to his love of Cajun food. Then you put jambalaya just out of reach in a ring of very strong magnets. He reaches with the metal arm. Bam. Got him. Trust me. I know about arms. Right now, I have Drax's arm. When we take your planet, I'm going to start a workout fad where you just take a little Skrull medicine and no working out, and you get huge arms and awesome tattoos. You know who won't be participating? Bucky Barnes. Yes, I am here for you podcasters. Just keep spreading the good word about the Skrull wellness plan and bulk up routine to your planet. Use your podcast. I don't have podcaster DNA to copy yet. Anyone want to hold hands?
I mean, somebody's got to one up it. You know, we need part 3.
Time for part 3.
You can't leave me there. You can't leave me hanging.
Yeah. Rule of threes, for sure.
The 3 quadrants.
Yeah. We're missing a quadrant of that joke.
I'm still sort of confused on the narrative a little bit, but we can leave it at that. I mean, it's...
Well, I think Bucky's been taken out, and, at least the Skrulls are on our side.
Yeah. Well, are they,
though? Invasion dig. I got that much.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of secret invasion dig, but Gaia is apparently on our side against Bucky, but it seems like she's also trying to use us to propagandize for the Skrull so they can take over easier. It sounded like to me.
Or it's just an MLM for this wellness plan.
for the Skrull injection of like Avengers DNA that is all in one blue vial.
It's very healthy, all organic, all natural. Subscribe, $99.99 a month. $1,000 a month after that for the next infinity months for the rest of your life.
If we keep going, we're going to get trapped in a secret invasion hole, and I don't think anybody here wants that.
No. So please, if we get a third part of this story, divert us to a different part of one of these universes. Speaking of various parts of this universe, let's get to our first story. Reliable scooper Jeff Sneider claims Marvel Studios is actively looking for an actor to play T'Challa, the Black Panther, replacing the late Chadwick Boseman, who passed away in 2020. According to Sneider, the studio's replacement of Boseman is due to the fact that the MCU is working within the multiverse currently. In related news, when asked during an interview about a dream role, Wicked star Cynthia Erivo said she would really want to play Storm to uncover how grand she is. Lastly, an OG villain is returning to the MCU, with Faran Tahir coming to the small screen to reprise the role of Raza, the leader of the so-called 10 Rings from 2008's Iron Man. Tahir will be in Vision Quest. What do we make of all of this?
Well, I'll start by addressing the elephant in the room. When you have such head-turning headlines, it just really strikes me that the headline that got the biggest reaction out of me is the last one there. The fact that Tahir is returning after only appearing in 2008's Iron Man. Like, wow, what a pull, what a deep cut. And I just love it. I love it because we've learned so much about the world since that his first appearance there with the 10 Rings. The 10 Rings has had a complete and total face change since the first time he popped up. And I'll be honest, it's been probably 4 or 5 years since I've watched Iron Man. I rewatched it in my lead up for Endgame, but haven't watched it since then. And I thought the character died.
I did too.
I'm really curious about the setting of Vision, of the Vision series now. Maybe it's going to involve some time travel. Maybe it's going to involve variants again, maybe other verses, what have you. So it's just encouraging when we know so little about this Vision series that when we hear James Spader's coming back as Ultron, we got this guy from 2008's Iron Man coming back, we just like grab onto these little nuggets and celebrate him. And I really hope that we learn more about that series, whether it be, just a first look or a trailer sooner rather than later here. But so having addressed that, obviously the really big story here is the Black Panther potential recasting here. And, it's really interesting. I think had you asked me about this maybe not even a full year ago, maybe like 6 months ago, I think I would have had a different take than I have now. I still don't know if it's a great idea, but I understand. And I think it's not been a full 5 years. It's been the better part of 4 years since Chadwick Boseman's passing. But I think it just really makes sense for this world. And as the write-down or the write-up there described, we are in the multiversal saga. So that kind of gives you that allowance if you were ever going to do something like this. And, have an appropriate way to do it that honors the legacy of Chadwick Boseman, but also acknowledges the fact that T'Challa is such an important character to the landscape of the MCU. And everything we know about the MCU since Wakanda has been introduced, it's such an important and integral part of the universe that, I'm not here to review Wakanda forever. I think it was a great send-up for Chadwick Boseman, honored him a lot, but there were parts of that story that it was very evident to me that it was like, okay, we wanted to do something and we couldn't because of the loss of this actor and this character. So I really am. I'm really curious to hear what everybody else is thinking about this, how they're reacting to it, if they think it's a good idea, if they think it's a bad idea, if enough time has passed. So I'm really curious to hear that. But I will also address Cynthia Erivo's comments there. It's I don't have too much to say. It's kind of like any talented actor wants to play, any role, give him a shot. I would definitely entertain it. Would love to see it. But I wonder if she has a full understanding of the character. I don't know what her understanding of the character is, but I don't know. I don't get the sense that she's a real comics fan. And maybe she is. Maybe I'm coming from a bad place or from a uninformed place, but it's just like, learn about the character, explore the character. I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with it, but give her a chance, but obviously don't give it to her just because of the success of Wicked, though she is immensely talented.
I saw, on the subject of Storm, a fan cast on Twitter after this story broke of Jodie Turner-Smith for Storm, which I really liked. She played one of the mothers in The Acolyte, and of course has been in lots of other projects as well. But I don't know. I thought that worked more for me. I like Cynthia. She's like you said, she's talented. But when I saw the Jodie Turner-Smith one, I was like, ooh, that actually feels better to me for some reason. So, we'll see. That'll be a coveted character for people to play, no doubt, when they do bring the X-Men in live. I'll skip back to T'Challa. We have to just keep in mind that this is probably specifically for Secret Wars, and so the way they're phrasing this recasting is that they're recasting T'Challa, but of course in the multiverse there are lots of T'Challas, and we still have our young T'Challa in the mainline MCU. So I think there will be some kind of crossover. This may not be our T'Challa because he is deceased in the MCU. So it's kind of like you can't recast him and say it's him necessarily. Right. I guess you could. I mean, but everybody would hate that. So, it's like, don't do that. So it's probably a different T'Challa if I had to take a guess. And then, Vision Quest, always down for news on Vision Quest. And knowing that Vision is made up of Ultron and Tony and Bruce, if he's trying to relearn his past, probably seeing like what happened to Tony in a flashback or something like that. But what a deep cut, like you said, to pull this specific actor from 2008. I think that's cool. That's gotta be fun for the actor too.
Yeah. Snyder's report really drew a lot of conversation online about, is it the right move? Because I think people read the headline and they read, recast, like just bring a guy in and say he's T'Challa. And, we told a whole story around the fact that character is no longer with us. And that was the whole point. That was the whole direction. So it inspired a lot of conversation about, recast and what does that mean, and bringing somebody in and legacy and all this type of stuff. And there were a couple of interesting things to come out of that conversation. One was that Snyder specifically mentioned in his report that a few months ago, this role of T'Challa was offered to a couple different actors, and it was turned down by various actors. He did not name anyone, but he was clear in that, this was a former, like, we want you to play T'Challa, yes or no, and the answer was no. And he insinuated in his report that he felt like that was because people were a little spooked of taking on a role and trying to be compared to Boseman and having to fill those shoes, and that might backfire a little bit for their career. That might not necessarily be something that people look at positively, but maybe it is looked at negatively by people who are a fan of the character or have followed this, or even within the industry itself. People who knew Chadwick might not like that. So a lot of people who've been offered this role have kind of not really been that excited about it, and that was right around the time that Robert Downey Jr. was pulled on as Doom. That's whenever these rumblings were going on, that these castings were being thrown out there. But it's also important to note, and we kind of touched on it, Haley, I think you kind of mentioned it, that like we don't really know what he means by recast, and I don't even think he really knows what he means by recast, because when you say it like this, you really could just be saying that they're trying to find a kid to play T'Challa's son, and that's we're casting T'Challa. Like that. Sure. That could be the truth behind the rumor, is that we are casting somebody to play that role. We're going to age him up a little bit. We have a plan, and we got Black Panther 4 coming at some point apparently. So, three. Sorry. Yeah, it's too many trilogies. So Black Panther 3, and when that happens, we would assume that character would sort of take the mantle of this thing. He's already named T'Challa, all of that. So that could be the case, right? It's like we're just trying to find the actor of the future to play T'Challa, or it could be a small role in Secret Wars, like you said. It doesn't necessarily have to be like we're just going to beam somebody over from the multiverse and be like, this is your T'Challa now, And I think a lot of people read it that way, but it does not have to mean that. I mean, it could mean a lot of different things whenever you're talking about bringing somebody else in to play that role.
I think there's been a lot of attention. I think these stories, these sort of leaks around T'Challa are getting a lot of attention because they're so clickbait heavy. There's a lot of like, they're recasting T'Challa and sort of angry things, and people posting and being really angry. When we heard a few weeks ago that Denzel was being considered for the Black Panther 3 to be in a role, there were a bunch of articles going around that are saying he was being recast as T'Challa, and like that, I've never saw that anywhere on any actual even like rumors. It was just way people were writing the article, taking that rumor and running with it. And it's like, and people were angry that he was being recast. He was being cast as T'Challa. Like, that's not even what's happening. I don't even like. I think that's just like it is very understandable that actors would not want to take on that challenge. That is a very beloved role and performance, and I don't really think it's a great idea to recast. They're not recasting our universe T'Challa. I don't know. I'm normally very okay with recasting, but just the way that one went down and how young he was, it's just really, really hard to take that on without feeling disrespectful. But we're about to talk about another recasting that I'm totally on board with and excited for. So like, it's just how it feels. It's just how it feels. As for Cynthia Erivo, I don't know. I haven't seen Wicked yet, so I don't know anything about her acting at all. So I don't know. She could be an amazing Storm, and she saying that's something she really wants to do. I would hope she has some connection to the character. It may even be as little as like she grew up seeing the cartoon. That's where a lot of people know the knowledge of Storm, and that could be all. But like, she's a powerful character in those shows, especially like. I could see someone who comes from stage acting and like big Broadway style acting, watching that character and being like, "Oh yeah, mistress of the elements," like that. I see that there's a connection there to like flying around on a witch's broom kind of vibes. So I don't know. Who knows? And as for Tahir, being Raza, the character of Raza coming back, I'm with you, Jay Scotty. I thought he was dead. It didn't. If I remember correctly, there's a scene with the remaining 10 rings who are left after Iron Man destroys their cave. There's a scene where Obadiah
Stane goes to
see them and leaves and tells his people to kill them all.
Well, they're outside the tent being killed. He's left in the tent. He's been, paralyzed or...
He uses that thing he uses on Tony later that's like, it looks like an earpiece, but it makes the purple veinage start to happen.
Yeah. So he doesn't die on screen.
I Googled it, and the AI answer is yes, Raza is seemingly killed by Obadiah Stane in the movie Iron Man. However... death is not permanent in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, he pretty much nailed it.
That's true, but in this case, I guess he does not die on screen. That's what I was going to say. Like, I know there's just a bunch of gunfire, and I guess if he's already paralyzed, maybe they just decided to leave him alive for some reason, or he's just was shot and survived. But interesting pull, and that show is getting more and more exciting for me, how much they're connecting it to the past of the MCU, and the sort of Star Trek-iness of it all has got me really excited. So that's of these things, that's the thing I'm most excited for.
Yeah, I know we're not typically a fan casty type of show, but I do have to ask the question before we move on, whether it is maybe an aged up version of Toussaint from Wakanda Forever, or if it is a T'Challa from another universe. Are there any names that come to mind for anybody?
I am definitely not the first to say this. It's been all around the internet as a rumor, but I do like John David Washington for it.
As do I.
Yeah.
He has the look, the vibe, the gravitas, the acting chops, and if he poured himself into that role, I could absolutely see him killing it.
I think John Boyega would be good. I think he probably won't do it. He probably won't ever do a franchise again after Star Wars, but I think he might be good in that role.
If you're scared of fan backlash, as John Boyega has already experienced, that is not the role to take over. And maybe he'll do a franchise again, but I doubt he'll be want to touch that rail or whatever.
Right.
Scotty, what's the name of the actor in Silo that plays a sheriff? David
Oyelowo.
Is that
yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
He could shape up and do it. I could see it.
Yeah, for sure. Or even I'm not going to be able to pull that actor's name, but Paul Billings from that show. Maybe if he
and
hit the gym pretty hard.
He's a well-known actor, and it's
sorry.
And every time we talk about it on Silo, it's on the tip of my tongue, and I can never think.
It's a weird name. It's a weird name, but it's an unusual name, I should say.
We saw what they did to Kumail Nanjiani. They can do it for anybody.
Oh yeah.
Have any of you watched Snowfall on FX?
No.
Okay. There's the lead in that his name is Damson Idris, and I didn't come up with it myself, but I saw it bandied about, and I really like it, especially if they went with like the Toussaint version, aged up. I think it could really work.
Scotty, you're talking about the one I was originally talking about, Billings. Holston Becker is the other one. You said his name, and I can't remember the other ones.
It's like Chinaisa, I want to say, something like that.
Sorry, we're bad. Yeah. Anyway, they both be good.
Yeah.
All right, in some other recasting news, Rory McCann will be replacing the late Ray Stevenson as Baylan Skoll for Ahsoka Season 2. McCann is best known for playing the Hound in Game of Thrones, but his roster of work also includes Gladiator II, Hot Fuzz, Clash of the Titans, and more. Ahsoka is part of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau's Mandoverse, and Filoni will return as showrunner for Season 2. As we discussed in the last story, replacing an actor can be difficult. Does McCann face challenges in hyperspace?
And also, as we discussed in the last story, this is a very different situation. So, unfortunately, Ray Stevenson passed away before Ahsoka Season 1 aired. So it was always probably going to be known that character was going to be recast. It's just kind of been a matter of who. And I know Liev Schreiber was definitely my front runner. Like, as soon as I saw that fan casting, I was like, Liev Schreiber would be really awesome in this role. But I think that Rory McCann will do a great job. I have to confess, I don't know him as an actor because, of course, I haven't seen Game of Thrones. Don't worry, it's coming eventually. But I think that, he's surrounded by a really strong cast in Ahsoka. I think that Stevenson left an amazing template for him to follow as the character of Baylan Skoll, and certainly they're not going to let him fail in the role by any means. And I think generally the fan base knew like this role was going to have to be recast based on how they left Season 1. So I think good for him that he gets to fill the shoes, and I'm sure he'll try to do it justice. And it is just a very different feeling of, a role like T'Challa that Chadwick played, was singular and very important and very special. And so the weight of it has to feel a little different. Not totally, and not trying to disrespect Ray Stevenson by any means, but, that was like a very monumental thing. And then this is more along the lines of things that happen all the time in movies and TV shows, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it'll be great.
Yeah, with Chadwick Boseman, it had a lot to do with the representation that he was putting forth, and like a number of people and what they meant to him, what he meant to everyone, and it's a very different cultural moment. And yeah, Ray Stevenson, I think it's also just how you ended that Season 1. Like that character is essential going forward. Mm-hmm. Like he is a huge part of the ongoing story that just needs to be resolved. You can change out the main character like they did with Black Panther, but like he is one of the in mid action. It hasn't been resolved. Like he is going forward towards his goal, and the other characters are racing him to that goal. Like that character can't just disappear. And so. I think this was essential recasting. I think that Ray Stevenson's performance in Season 1 elevated that show so much. It is really hard for me to imagine anyone taking over that role and doing it justice. Roy McCann is good. I have seen Game of Thrones. He's a really great part of it. And he has some similar elements to the Baylan Skoll character. This character that's like, there's something dark about you, but there's also a heart. Seems like there's a heart somewhere in there, and and if we peel the layers back, are we going to find more darkness or more light? And it's just hard to know. I think he does that really well in Game of Thrones. I don't know if he. I don't consider him. I've only seen him in Game of Thrones. I've only seen him as the Hound. I don't consider him as high caliber an actor as Ray Stevenson. Mm-hmm. He's great on Game of Thrones, but I just don't. It doesn't feel like there's as much internal life happening as I felt with Ray Stevenson. Part of that might be that he had passed away, and we were all paying attention to the role more, and he really did. I just think he elevated the show. It was just killer. So Roy McCann has the look. Like I think he can look right. he can pull it off. He's been in high caliber stuff before. I'm just hopeful in Game of Thrones and in Gladiator. I haven't seen these other roles, but if there's sort of this like Clash of the Titans, Game of Thrones, he plays this big brute, and I'm hoping he can pull off a different kind of character and to bring Baylan Skoll back to life, because I think such an important part of Ahsoka, and like I am so bummed that we don't get to see Ray Stevenson's season 2. It's really a bummer. It's one of the best, one of the most like lived in performances of Star Wars in the last few years. I love it so much.
Yeah, it should also be said too that Rory McCann and Ray Stevenson were friends. Like they were close, and so
that's nice.
The idea of recasting. I mean, I usually never have that much of a problem with recasting. I mean, like we've talked about, the T'Challa thing was very different. It was just it was so shocking. It was so sudden, and it just that's the direction that Ryan Coogler wanted to take the franchise, and that's how he wanted to honor him. And so it was a totally different situation. But as you move into thinking about, art and artists, they support their art. They want to see they're friends with the people who produce these shows and who are on these shows. And a lot of times, the people that know them, and they would say, like, this person wants this to continue. Like, they loved being on this show. They want this character to continue. It's, a recasting doesn't have to be like a disrespectful thing. I mean, it can be an honoring thing to recast somebody, just in the same way as what Ryan Coogler did with T'Challa can be an honoring thing. It can kind of, all of these things can coexist together in terms of recasting. But I agree with you, Matt. I loved Ray Stevenson in that role. I just thought he just brought so much through his, just the way that just the way that you read his face, the way that he stood, the way that he interacted with other people. It was just on a different level. And Rory McCann, can he bring that? Probably to some level, but it's just it's a personality thing. It's going to feel a little weird at first. I think it will feel a little jarring, especially if you go back and you rewatch Ahsoka season 1 before you watch Ahsoka season 2. I think there will take a little bit of adjustment there. I think there'll be a little bit of like, that's supposed to be that guy, and that will kind of be something that your brain is going to have to do. But I think once you get over that hump, it will be fine. I mean, we've seen him in Game of Thrones, and as the Hound, he is this kind of, like you said, this brute character. But that's kind of what Baylan Skoll was as well. Like, this idea of this, like, I mean, we talked about that when we talked about his lightsaber fights, how he was just like a brute. He would just hit harder. Ahsoka would fight a lot like more like with finesse and quick, and he was just heavy hitting, type thing. And if you're bringing somebody in to replace that, like, Rory McCann probably fits that pretty well.
I don't think of Ray Stevenson as that tall.
He's a big dude.
I do think of Rory McCann as very tall, so I was just looking it up. Like, Rory McCann is 6'6", I think it says.
Damn.
Which is very tall. But Ray Stevenson was 6'3". That's just both very tall dudes.
I just rewatched Ahsoka over my winter break, and he's a big dude.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah.
It's very imposing.
I think the myriad reasons that this recasting was so necessary have been explored pretty thoroughly here. So I will hone in on Rory McCann and his acting and his career thus far, and his chops, and not to take anything away from Ray Stevenson, but in terms of this, like, comparing Rory McCann's ability to Ray Stevenson's, I think it's just a matter of not having as many opportunities. Because, looking back on the character of the Hound, and I'm going to avoid spoilers for the character of the Hound, but thinking about all of the characters across Game of Thrones and the entirety of that show, the Hound really does stand out as being such a character that goes on such a journey, thinking about where he started and where he ended up. And I think there are a lot of similarities in terms of, like, seeing a character that is capable of some really, really heinous things, but there is a sense of honor, and slowly but surely you start to warm up to, and you never fully warm up to the guy, but you start to understand the inner workings and gain an appreciation for his journey and the honor that he does have and the people that he holds in respect there. So all that being said, I am pretty excited for this casting. I think he's got the chops. All of the other things that have been brought up, the fact that he was friends with Ray Stevenson, having worked on a show like Game of Thrones, I think that alone, just working on something high budget, high concept, having to wear the costumes, having to deal with the long hours and the physical strain, I think he's already proved that he can do that. So the one movie that got brought up that I completely did not even realize that he was in was Gladiator II, which is funny because it was so recent. And I hesitate to bring it up because I don't think it's a credit to how memorable the role was, but when I realized who he played in that movie, to be fair, it is a very different gear from the Hound. So that does give me a little bit of hope and optimism.
Sweet. All right. Well, moving on to the distinguished competition, director Andy Muschietti let it be known why he thinks the 2023 DCEU movie The Flash flopped. On Radio 2's La Balera del Caso show, Muschietti said the film didn't appeal to all four quadrants of moviegoers. The quadrants he's speaking of are men over 25, men under 25, women over 25, and women under 25. Muschietti also said anecdotally that in conversation with people, he found they just don't care about the Flash as a character, particularly the two female quadrants. We discussed issues the Flash film experienced at length in 2023. Is Muschietti on the money or off the mark?
You know, we talked about a Sony executive a couple weeks ago making statements about why Kraven the Hunter and Madam Web and all these movies just flopped at the box office, and we walked away from that conversation going, man, this guy's really out of touch, right? Because he is boiling down the failure of these movies, which the list contributing to that is long, to just one thing or whatever. So for Andy Muschietti, instead of focusing on the fact that The Flash was the last gasp of a dying universe, that we confirmed that there was a new DCU before The Flash aired, to the fact that Ezra Miller went on a crime spree and was basically not allowed to go do press tours, to the fact that the movie was just not good and confusing and poorly reviewed, and everything else in between that caused the pain and of at the box office that was The Flash. Instead, for Andy Muschietti, it's that women did it. You know, they're the ones who killed the Flash. and so when I hear this, it's like, okay, again, it's the out of touch nature of like, it's not a mystery why this movie failed. And it's one of those, like, I think people are even okay to give grace to these films, even if they know it's not going to continue in another universe, you know, even that. Like, I think people are willing to give it grace. It had Michael Keaton in it, and he was Batman, and it had Supergirl, by the way, like, speaking of, like, appealing to women, like, it had a strong female character, like, so to come out and just be like, people don't care about the Flash, I think you're way off the mark on that. Like, the CW built a whole universe around the Flash. Like, people have been begging for a Flash movie. Like, there's been, like, petitions after petitions for Flash movies for pretty much as long as we've been making superhero movies. So, like, people want to see that character in stuff. It's just the way that it was done. It just, you had this, like, this thing happen where we're shutting down the universe and we're bringing in a new universe and it's a new guy and all this type of stuff. And James Gunn is pulled out as the head of DC and all of this. And then, okay, but also come see this movie that's connected to all the other stuff. It's just like, that's not going to vibe with people. Like, people are, and then on top of it, the movie's not good. Like, if people can put it aside and be like, well, Michael Keaton's in it, it's fine, I'll go see it, you know? But it's just, the movie was not good. It made no sense. It was just not one of those movies you go out and tell people to go see. So it's just, it's missing the real issues that the movie had. And to me, it sort of highlights, because I think, at least for me, I mean, maybe disagree, but for me, I was not super excited whenever James Gunn made the announcements of films to come up, and he said, oh yeah, and we're doing a Batman movie directed by Andy Muschietti. And this was like right after The Flash. And I was like, the Flash guy? You know, like, and I think a lot of people did that. Like, I think a lot of people were like, I don't know about that one. Like, I'm cool with everything else, but like, I don't know about that one. And it's kind of, this is just kind of my thing with James Gunn. Like, I love the dude. Like, I love the content that he makes for the most part. But the thing that just he can't get out of his own way on is he just rewards people all the time in actor roles, producer roles, directing roles for being loyal to him. And even if they don't do a great job, so in The Flash, like Andy Muschietti was Team James, and James Gunn stumped hard for The Flash. Like, he went out, he was tweeting about it, he was posting about it, he was at all the red carpets, he was like, go see this. He was even insinuating, oh man, if this movie does really well, we might think about bringing some of these people over to the new DCU. Like, he was doing all that, right? Like, he was out there really pushing it. And Andy Muschietti didn't say a word about, hey, you're killing all my characters off, and like I'm making a movie, and you're gonna, like, he didn't say a word. He was super supportive of Gunn and DC. So then, of course, DCEU wraps up. We put a bow on it. Here's a Batman movie. You know, like, that's a huge reward. Here's a Batman movie that you get to direct, and it's not. We've seen this out of Gunn his whole career, and now that he's in this role, in this leadership role, it can bite him. I think, like, this idea of like bringing people in just because they're your boys or whatever, like it's not always going to pay off in the best way. And so, you know, it's all that to say, I think the statements were just ridiculous overall. Just, you know, it's, of course, yeah, the 4 quadrants in Hollywood, people talk about that all the time. The Flash, that was not its problem. It had a lot of problems that it did not overcome, and just made for a train wreck of a movie. But it's just, you know, it's women's fault, I guess. I guess.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Well, and that's
the girls, the ladies killed it.
That problem he's talking about is it's just such a simplified version of what happened that isn't even accurate to what happened. The idea that, like, girls don't like the Flash, like, that's just, like, this is so stupid. There's literally a CW show. Grant Gustin has a huge fan base of both genders. Like, that's not a thing. It's just the people who were supposed to love your movie the most were not excited about it, so it doesn't spill over to the rest of the culture. The people who are the biggest Flash fans, the people who've been most excited about the Flash, are upset that you're not including their Flash in this movie. If they had put Grant Gustin in that movie and said, hey, you'll get a Grant Gustin tease in this movie at least, and put him in the big multiverse scene, that would have gotten a bunch of butts in seats, like Flash fans, and maybe you could have won them over to your DCEU's Flash. But you just didn't care about Flash fans. You didn't care about comic book fans who follow these movies closely, because you ended the universe and told them there was nothing coming forward, so they had all the less reason to care. And then you made kind of a terrible movie that has a lot of problems. I don't think it's the worst. It's not the worst comic movie. It's not the worst movie in the geekdom universe, but there's some terrible moments in it that just feel unearned and weird and terrible CGI. I don't know. It just has its problems. And the baby scene, I don't know.
I hate
just
it
sets
so
it
much.
I hate the baby
so
scene
much. Like, the whole movie just gets on my nerves so much.
Oh man, I've really blocked that out.
The last multiverse scene is just it's just absolutely awful the way that was executed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that guy's supposed to have Batman now? Like, I don't love it.
What are you doing when probably the funniest thing in your entire movie is just a reference to An Evening with Kevin Smith, when he told the story about the giant spider and Superman fighting the giant spider? Like, that's like the funniest and kind of most connected to, like, geek culture moment in that movie. And it's like, you're appealing to Kevin Smith fans that watched An Evening with Kevin Smith 2 in like 2004, like, but you're not appealing to Flash fans. It's terrible marketing on that movie. What do you think, Haley? Is it just the girls?
Hey, I mean,
why did you kill the Flash?
So.
Why did you kill the Flash, Haley?
Answer for all women.
We spent, $40 seeing the Flash in my house.
You're like, we did it, ladies. We killed the Flash. We're coming for Superman next.
That was our whole goal. I mean, don't worry about, like, your reproductive rights or, equitable pay. The Flash, like, fuck that guy.
We got him.
Gotta get female solidarity to kill the Flash.
These executives, or I guess he's not even an executive, they need to temper their comments. That's really my only take on this whole thing. It's crazy.
Very fair.
Yeah, I don't have too much to say either. It's just such a colossally bad take that it almost feels orchestrated to me at this point. It's like, and I start to look at Andy Muschietti's filmography, and he's got 5 films to his name, but it's becoming more and more apparent to me that maybe It Chapter 1 was the exception rather than the rule in terms of his talent as a filmmaker. And that being said, I will not lay all the failings of The Flash at his feet. Jay, you kind of pointed out how he was in James Gunn's camp. So, had he not been, he probably could have pushed back on some things or been a little more combative there, and maybe it would have resulted in a better movie. But yeah, he certainly was not in a desirable position in terms of like how many directors were attached to the Flash. Like, it was announced in 2014. We didn't get the thing until 2003. I think there were no less than 5 directors attached to the thing. Yeah, but all that being said, there's no excuse for just how bad a take this is. Like, no excuse. Yeah. Like, people like The Flash, and if you thought people didn't like The Flash, the time to figure that out was way earlier in production.
Yes, that's what that's the best part that stood out to me, him being like, I think the reason people didn't go to the movie that I directed had nothing to do with my creative decisions. It had to do with the fact that they don't like that character.
It's their fault. Yeah, it's the same thing the Sony executive said. It's not me, it's you.
Terrible. Terrible.
Goodness.
All right. Coming up in this week's Lightning Round, we have Brave New World box office predictions, The Running Man casting, Puppy Bowl news, Shrek 5, and more. All that right after this. Welcome back to Multiverse News. If you're watching this show, then you like news from around the multiverse, and we try to bring you that news every week with just some friends sitting and chatting about it. And if you like that kind of content, help us by supporting the show at patreon.com/multiverse newscast. Anything fun happening over on the Patreon this week?
Why don't you tell them about your how do I put this delicately? Strong take on Creature Commandos.
Yeah, go check out my strong take on Creature Commandos. I think that's perfect. We did a tangent talk last week where we sometimes break out and do little conversations about other things we're watching, and they're a little more spoilery or whatever, just to chat about them. So we did a short tangent talk about Creature Commandos. That's the most recent little special episode. Went just to the patrons. So check that out, and check out all the other stuff. We got polls over there. We do contests, all kinds of stuff. So patreon.com/multiverse newscast. And so check that out. Now let's move to our Spotify poll for this week. We asked, how would you want Andrew Garfield to return as Spider-Man? I love that it broke down like this. 1.8% of you said in Spider-Man 4. That's a very small percentage. That's got to be one person.
It was one person.
5.3% of you said don't bring back Peter 3. 33% of you said in his own movie, and 59% of you said in Secret Wars.
The people want him back.
Yeah, that's kind of where we stood, I think, mostly when we talked about it too. Like, you bring him back and you bring Toby back, and it's just like, this is just what Spider-Man is now. It's just the 3 of you, and I don't think we're in love with that idea. So I think this is kind of how we left the conversation. Would just
100%.
We kind of like to see him again, but maybe not as like a major character.
Well, and it's that thing of you gotta give characters time away to be excited for them again. Like these sort of like multiversal drop-ins don't feel special if you do them in every movie.
True dat.
Yeah.
Thinking back on my take from last week's episode, people might have thought that I would have voted don't bring him back, but I actually voted bring him back in Secret Wars. So yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'm very few in our audience. It's 84% or so said to bring him back. So dig it. All right, so let's move on to the lightning round. This is the part of the show where I'm going to read a story, and all the panelists, including myself, are going to shout out our names if we would like to claim that story, and we're going to just respond to this. One person's going to respond to each story, and then once per lightning round, we each get a rebuttal. So use it wisely. First in the lightning round, Coleman Domingo has been cast in Edgar Wright's The Running Man and will star alongside Glenn Powell, Josh Brolin, Carl Glusman, Katie O'Brien, and Daniel Ezra. The film releases on November 7th.
Scotty?
Jay?
The Running Man seems like it's going to be the story that we talk about. If it's not one week, it's the next week. Every other week, it seems like. So, yeah, the cast just continues to build. I do think that this role, he's probably up for, Coleman Domingo is probably up for the same role that Lee Pace was up for, which as I become more and more familiarized with the Arnold Schwarzenegger previous film, it sounds like that's like the game show host.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that's confirmed that he is playing that role. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
That sounds really, really great. All right. Production on many Hollywood television and film projects has been suspended, and events such as the Critics' Choice Awards, red carpet premieres, and the Academy Awards nominations have been postponed due to the LA area wildfires.
Haley, I mean, yeah. Yeah. Pretty devastating out there. Help
for sure.
if you can. Find a reputable nonprofit, or if you know people and you can assist them if you're able to, definitely do that. But yeah, Ash and I had talked about maybe hopping on Twitch for the Critics' Choice red carpet, and then we were like, absolutely not happening. So it is interesting that they're delaying it. I mean, like, are they going to move it somewhere else? They have to do them. I understand they probably have to do them because they've been planned, and, that's probably a lot of money down the drain if they don't do them, but it's going to feel weird no matter what. And if this one's delayed, is it going to be a trickle-down effect of everything being delayed? So things could get messy.
Yeah. Hopefully it'll all get contained soon, and much just a send out of love to any of our pandas out there, both listeners and multiple hosts that have had to make arrangements because the fires are getting close. So our own Jeff Randall had to step away from his house for a few days. So hopefully everybody's able to get back and life will get normalized soon. Crazy.
Yeah. I'll chime in to say as well, I don't think it needs to be said for our audience. I mean, we just cited some, real lives that are being impacted by this thing, but those people that are politicizing this thing or writing off like this is only happening to celebrities, like, just have some humanity. It doesn't matter what lot in life you have. When you lose everything like that, it hurts. So just have some humanity, have some compassion. This is impacting all walks of life in that area.
Yeah, for sure. It like, people are using the fact that some of the houses have been, like you said, celebrities or whatever, which it can feel harder to sympathize, but like you said, those are people too. But there are just like regular middle class people and poor people that are encountering some of these fires and just tearing up entire neighborhoods. So yeah, please check out somewhere to donate if you can. Be great. All right, 5-time WWE World Champion Seth Rollins has confirmed he is not in upcoming MCU movie Captain America Brave New World, saying his role was cut following extensive rewrites of the script and subsequent reshoots.
Jay, I still kind of remain a little nervous about Captain America Brave New World because of this, because of there's a lot of reshoots for this movie, and it really pushed the budget pretty high in terms of what the final number is going to be. We're going to talk here in a minute about the projections for the opening weekend for Captain America Brave New World, and most of the time, we'll talk about it a little bit more in detail when we get there, but most of the time those projections are very accurate. There's a lot of data and information behind those projections, and it's projecting to be a pretty solid opening weekend, but still, a lot of that does hinge on how it's received. Like, will we see the Rotten Tomatoes score for this thing pop a couple weeks or a week before the movie? Or will we see it pop the day before release like Moana 2? And that's kind of where you're kind of like, not feeling great about how they feel about it, if that's the case, So for someone to come out who was like cast in the movie at the beginning and had a role and all of that, and then and he was supposed to be like the leader of like basically like the main antagonist of the movie, to kind of come out and be like, yeah, I'm not in it at all. I just think that's a little concerning to kind of highlight, well, yeah, they reshot a ton of stuff for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they tried to patch it all together. Will the final product be good and make sense and be cohesive? We all hope so, but it's a lot of times when you do all this kind of cutting and reshooting and stitching together, and it doesn't always turn out great, so I just remain a little bit kind of nervous about this movie for this type of thing.
Counterpoint, Back to the Future. One of my favorite movies. They had to completely recast Marty McFly after they'd been shooting for weeks. So yes, there were also apparently problems with the script. They changed major things, but that happens very often in these movies. The fact that they had to remove this WWE character, and it seems like replace with Giancarlo Esposito character.
That seems that way, yeah.
It just seems like that wasn't working, and if something isn't working, I would much rather them make the change than try to just double down on something that's not working. Like I said, Back to the Future, one of my favorite movies of all time. If you watch the shots, I think it's Eric Stoltz. Is that right? Anybody?
Yeah,
I think that is right. Yeah.
They joked about it in The Flash. Remember?
Yes, that's right. That's right.
No, I've completely blocked it from my mind because I'm a woman.
No, you bring up The Flash again.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Haley, how dare you speak on The Flash?
After what you did,
after paying to see that movie,
you stay in your quadrant. Don't come out.
We won't talk about which quadrant I'm in. By the way, real fast, those 4 quadrants really just make up humanity, which made me laugh.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just such an easy, simple breakdown of humanity. That's just old,
it's all people.
Divided in half, old and young, men and women. It's so dumb.
It's like how you explain it to an alien. You're like, well, I mean, here's kind of what humans are.
I'm gonna bring it back to the Seth Rollins story
yes,
here, and I know we're making a meal of this one, but counter to the counterpoint. So at the time of this recording, it is January 14th. It is a month away from when this movie comes out, and tickets are not on pre-sale, which is kind of concerning.
Ooh, yeah, that is weird. Counterpoint to your counterpoint to my counterpoint. I want this movie to be good because this is Marvel's big year, and I don't want them to start it off. I do not want them to start 2025 off with a movie that is subpar. Like Thunderbolts, I think is going to be amazing. Yeah. Fantastic Four is so freaking exciting. Daredevil, Ironheart, Wonder Man. I'm so pumped for so many things Marvel this year, and I just don't want it to kick off the narrative of Marvel's over, and then just spiral down and all these amazing things not get the attention and love they deserve because the first one's a little off. I hope it's not. Sorry, I think I interrupted you.
No, I want the movie to do well. I love Marvel, but I also like DC, and I did have a humbling kind of moment. I thought about it. I was like, I do think I'm giving this movie more goodwill than I would if it was another studio, if they were in the same position. If this was a DC movie that had gone through the kind of production hell this one would, I think I would have already written it off. But it is the fact that it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I want it to be so good that I still have as much of a vested interest in it as I do. And all that being said, I really want it to be as great as we all hope it is going to be.
For sure. And it's not just that it's Marvel, though. It's characters that I'm very excited for. Sam Wilson returning as Captain America, so exciting. And Thunderbolt Ross as Red Hulk. Harrison Ford taking the role. Speaking of recastings, which this whole episode's been a theme. But man, I'm really, really excited for that movie. So all these, I know it's all worrying, but I'm just choosing to be blindly optimistic.
And that's why we love you.
Craven will be all right, you guys. Universal Pictures has updated the release date calendar for 2 animated properties. DreamWorks' Shrek 5 has been pushed back almost 6 months to December 23rd, 2026, and Minions 3 from Illumination is moving forward almost a year to take Shrek 5's original date of July 1st, 2026.
Scotty, you look at the numbers and this all makes sense. Puss in Boots, The Last Wish came out around the holiday time. I think that was 2022 going into 2023. But that movie ended up doing gangbusters for DreamWorks. And then you look at Minions, it's always to my dismay, the Minions are always going to be one of the highest grossing movies any summer that they come out. So Keep on keeping on, minions.
I do have to say, I saw Puss in Boots: The Last Wish the other day, like a week ago. It is so good. Like my kids were watching it, and like I just wasn't like they had just hit play, and I just was kind of like, you know, like the meme of the dad that like stands and watches the movie for like 20 minutes before he gets invested. Sure. Like that was me. Like I was just like standing in the kitchen, like just watching it and realizing like I've been standing here for 15 minutes. And, like I walked over and sat down. It was like watching it. I was like, okay, I guess I'm just committed to this now. It's good.
That's good to hear.
It is really good. Yeah.
I never watched any of the Puss in Boots movies.
The animation's really cool too. Like I think that's kind of what drew me in. Like the animation's really unique and cool.
Neat. That's really cool. Variety reported today that MCU screenwriter veteran Marcus McFeely originally turned the Russo brothers down about writing for Secret Wars, even though he is the reason the directing duo is returning. However, the next day, McFeely called the Russos back and said he was in after coming up with an idea for the film.
Jay checked his bank account. That's what happened. He's like, dang, like, yeah, maybe I do need to do this. No, that's a cynical
He saw
take.
the money truck come in and back up, and he was like, whoa, wait, hold on now. Come back.
All right. Warner Brothers is bringing back the Puppy Bowl for its 21st installment this year, but will use the game to bolster its upcoming DCU film Superman. James Gunn will appear during the Puppy Bowl with his dog Ozu, who served as the inspiration for the superdog Krypto in the film. Gunn will introduce a sneak preview of Superman and deliver a special message to viewers.
Haley, I will talk about the Puppy Bowl forever if you want me to. The Puppy Bowl is amazing. If you've never watched the Puppy Bowl, you're missing out. It's just puppies playing, and it's fantastic. And they're rescue puppies, and they're all up for adoption, and it's just the cutest thing you've ever seen. So if you don't care about football, watch the Puppy Bowl. It is great for rescue awareness. It's cute. You don't have to watch football if you don't like sports, which, you know, I know our audience is very divided on that. This podcast panel is very divided on that. So anyway, now you have a really, really exciting reason to watch the Puppy Bowl because if you get to see a sneak peek of Superman, that's cool. And of course, I'm pretty sure Gunn's dog is a rescue, and the dog that's playing Krypto was also a rescue dog, which I love that Hollywood is leaning into that. It's so great. So the Puppy Bowl, that's my spiel.
Tiny butt about this Krypto thing, or about the Puppy Bowl. I think this is so smart. I didn't realize how much Krypto would matter until my fiance watched the Superman trailer. Cares nothing about Superman or DC at all. She is now the biggest Krypto fan in the world. She is so pumped for Superman just to see Krypto. And so, like, I imagine this special preview of Superman is going to be puppy or dog focused, like Krypto, like a Krypto trailer almost. I bet they're gonna like really focus that preview. Maybe it'll be a scene with Krypto in it, maybe whatever. But like, I think this is so smart. It's wonderful. It's gonna bring a lot of people into this movie. It might even get those other two quadrants that like that apparently don't.
You know
like
which ones it won't get. Oh goodness, that's so funny.
According to box office tracking service Quorum, Captain America Brave New World will likely cross the $100 million mark in its opening 4-day weekend.
Haley's turn, because y'all went on for so long. I hear the thing about the reshoots, but my take on this whole thing, I think this is a positive projection for them. I think that we have to always bear in mind like the changes that went on in Marvel Studios between like the movies prior to Deadpool and Wolverine and now. So like I think a lot of the reshoots probably had to do with Feige having to come back in and having to be like, okay, kids, like what are we doing? And then, you know, other reshoots that are normal. So I'm not as nervous about the reshoots as some people on this show are. Because I'm just
I'll gladly eat crow if the movie's great.
But I am excited for it. I want it to come out of the gate swinging, like you said, Matt. So
I feel like we've got a bet brewing here. I mean, it's hard to have a bet about quality of a movie, but like I feel maybe like we could go by cinema score or something. Like
it'll have a good cinema score just because it's Marvel. I mean, it'll have any cinema score, I'm sure.
No bets until we resolve the last bet that still has not been fulfilled.
Yes.
Now, I will say that the $100-ish million or whatever, it is solid. It's a solid opening weekend. It's not great, but it's not bad. It's not doom and gloom. I think it is good news overall. If you want to compare it to a box office, it's extremely similar to Quantumania. Quantumania came out right around the same time. It was that same weekend, basically, and made about 106, 110, something like that, $1 million. So Quantumania, didn't really necessarily kill it at the box office. So it's kind of like when you're looking ahead to Captain America here, it's a good solid start. But what you're really hoping in for this is that it is well reviewed, it is well received, it's got the solid score on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got people saying, oh yeah, it's good, go see it, and it's got that kind of like pull and that draw. And if it can have that, then yeah, I think, because that was a problem with Quantumania, is like people were like, I didn't really like this, and then it kind of, the interest wanes off, and people start saying, I'll just wait for Disney Plus, and they don't go see it. So it really I think it in some ways kind of needs that little bit of that push from the critics to help kind of get more people out in that opening weekend. But we'll see.
Ludwig Göransson will compose the score for Christopher Nolan's upcoming adaptation of The Odyssey. Göransson's other film and TV credits include Creed, Black Panther, Atlanta, Tenet, and The Mandalorian.
Haley, one of the greatest composers of our generation, not even in the making. I think it goes without saying. And yes, Scotty, Ludwig. Thank you.
Sorry.
Ludwig.
Sorry. Succession creator Jesse Armstrong has reached an agreement with HBO to produce a feature film. The movie is based on an original idea of Armstrong's and will center on 4 friends who meet up in the midst of a global financial crisis. Production is currently fast-tracked to start later this year.
Jay, HBO does this, right? They have somebody have a successful property, and they like them, and they lock them down. I mean, this is why we see Succession and Game of Thrones creators getting in on the ground level on series and movies, and I'm sure they just told Armstrong, like, tell us what you want to do. You did Succession. Do you want to do a series? Do you want to do a film? Whatever idea you have, tell us, and we'll fast track it. So totally makes sense. But we've been waiting, like, what was going to be the next move after Succession, and we got an answer.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the news for this week. Let's go around and tell the people where they can find us online, what we got going on. Illy Hobbs?
I'll put my nonprofit hat on again, and just say, if you do want to help out those affected in LA to find a reputable nonprofit, no shade to big nonprofits like the Red Cross, but your dollar goes further at local ones. So find something that matters to you and help them out. And then over on Source Pages, we did our Creature Commandos review and comparison, and I'll be wrapping up my always watching marathon stint this week with Silo and Skeleton Crew.
Sweet. And J. Scotty St. Clair.
Where Haley's always watching coverage marathon ends with Silo Season 2. Mine is halfway through, because as Silo ends, we will be talking about Severance Season 2 on Always Watching. So look forward to that. I know I am. Definitely one to be excited for. But Creature Commandos also recently wrapped up its 7-episode first season. So Zuhair and I got together on Animation Deliberation, talked about it when it was about halfway through. But I know I am definitely eager to talk about that show now that we have it in its entirety. So, Animation Deliberation, wherever you get your podcasts.
Absolutely. And Jay Sisson.
Yeah, you can catch me at Commute the Podcast weekly, where we'll talk about a few interesting things in about 20 minutes for your drive to work. And I do want to also mention that our show, Multiverse News, does have a social media presence. So if you are on Instagram, we're at Multiverse Newscast. If you're on TikTok, before they shut it down, it's on Multiverse Newscast. We're also Multiverse News on Facebook, and we have Twitter as well at MV Newscast. So please go whatever sites you're on, even if you're just following. You can even mute us, just hit follow, just so we get the, we get the interaction or whatever. It just, that kind of stuff just helps us out when we're talking about growth. So, go give us some love over on social media.
Yeah, and even if the platform we're on doesn't fact check, we will always fact check.
Yeah. All right. If you want to find me, I'm over at Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast, as well as Always Watching right now. We're like Scotty mentioned, we're going to be doing Severance starting this week, and I'm just finishing up Skeleton Crew tomorrow. So come join us on Always Watching. That's been a lot of fun, and MCU Cast is just going to have such a fun year. Such a fun year of stuff to talk about. I hope it's all great, every single property. But if it's not, it'll still be fun to talk about. So come join us at the Marvel Cinematic Universe Podcast. Make sure you're subscribed and whatever else over there. And we'll be back here on Multiverse News. Thanks for joining us. Peace.
You stay classy, Multiverse.
All right. Thanks you so much for watching us on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Make sure to hit the like and subscribe and share and the bell icon, all the things you do on YouTube. But really, really appreciate that. And we've been trying to ask a specific question every week for you guys here, just for the YouTube viewers, so we get some people answering in the comments. And last week we asked, what actor from the DCEU would you like to see them bring into the DCU, and what character should they play? We only got one answer, and they didn't even answer the question. Bob Zombie says he'd like to see Michael Keaton come back and play Alfred, who trains a young Bruce Wayne. I guess that technically answers the question.
He's in the DCEU. He was
You're
in
right.
Flash.
You're right.
In the aforementioned Flash that I never saw.
R.I.P. Flash.
Yeah. Well, it's not for lady eyes.
Before all the witches killed it, it was doing great.
Oh my gosh. So if you so that's true. I was thinking it didn't answer the question, but he did answer the question. Michael Keaton was in the DCEU, but I think that'd be a really fun one. I've seen a lot of people talk about how they want Michael Keaton. There was talk for a while that Michael Keaton would come and play in a Batman Beyond movie and play the old Bruce Wayne, training the young Terry McGinnis or whatever. Is that right, Terry McGinnis? So that I would love to see him training a young Batman in any way. But since no one answered the question, I'm not going to give you a question this week. If you want us to,
he did answer the question.
No, but we only got one. And it was kind
You're
of adjacent.
You're not knowing Bob Zombie to us.
Where are you at, Dave? Where are you at, Dave from Wendy's?
Yeah, Dave from Wendy's. You're dropping the ball, Dave from Wendy's. We need more responses to our YouTube questions. So if you want YouTube questions, give us like a little heart. Just give us a heart in the comment section, and we'll bring questions back next week.
Or ask us a question. Maybe we'll try to answer your questions.
That's true. Yeah. Give us a question. All right, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, YouTube.